Founders sometimes take the easy path and copy a startup operating in other markets and localize it. Actually, is this an easy path? Very few have been successful. So how about their exit strategy? What we can learn about their acquisition and all their journey? Please welcome with me our honorable speaker, Mohamed A Aboulnaga, CEO at Pi, Mohamed Alzubi, founder and managing partner at Nama Venture, Ahmed Mirghani, partner at BIM Venture, and Ehsan Zadmard, CEO and founder at Alveri GmbH. And this session is moderated by Muhannad, Integral Reality Labs. تفضلوا. You have 30 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. This is an interesting session for me. I worked in copying other startups before, and I know how interesting it can go. Thank you for the panelists to be here with me. I think because we have limited time, I'm just gonna dig into the questions directly. Okay, Mohammed, since you said that, I would like to ask you a question.
Sure.
At Nama, what's your philosophy on copycats?
أولاً بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I'm honored and privileged really to be here in beautiful Jordan, بلدنا الحبيب. It's always impressive to be part of MENA ICT. يعني welcome to the guests that have come from all over. This used to, or still is, one of the pillar conferences in the region. And I saw the title, and there's a sentence that I'm not sure if I agree with, which is, some of them have not worked. And if we can have the phones on silent, please, and if your phone rings, we're going to make you sing, because nobody should have their phone ring in a conference anymore. The copycats, if you want to call them copycats, have been the most successful. I mean, we look for the copycats. At Nama Ventures, you've asked me, we don't call them copycats, we call them a de-risk business model. So if we're taking at pre-seed, and maybe this is more prevalent for Nama Ventures, we're a pre-seed fund. So we're going to be taking the riskiest of riskiest within this venture capital asset class, which is betting on a team. So we can't have team execution risk on top of business model risk. So we don't invest unless you can show us in your competitive landscape that there are phenomenal companies out west or out far east that have done that. And why do you think that is? Because that also answers another question, because I have to feed 70 mouths that have put money in, we call them LPs, to return back the investment they've made 3, 4, 5 times what they've invested in Nama Ventures. We want to see exits. And strategic, I just saw a phone ring. So strategics are the most prevalent ways of a startup to exit. Every founder aspires to get an IPO, but that's a rarity. And trust me, we're always praying and hoping that you will achieve an IPO, initial public offering. But the second best is a technology strategic. And by the way, let's take the two copycats, because I called the founders. I asked them, by the way, I'm going to be on this panel, MENA ICT, right? Give me some good nuggets of information. Kareem, which is the biggest exit. Ligati was involved in that effort. So I called one of the founders, I'm not going to say who it is, and I said, what have you done? And you took the Uber business model. He goes, Mohammed, we innovated so much. And who remembers 2 things that stand out from Kareem? Don't say it because you were there. That from Kareem that don't apply to Uber. Cash and pre-order. And guess what Uber did? In our part of the world, started doing cash and pre-order. And I called one of our portfolio companies, Tamara, which is a firm, buy now, pay later. And I said, did you copycat? And he kind of got offended, because he said, well, he didn't get offended. It was a friendly, he said, Mohammed, we spent a whole lot of time innovating on this product to make it Sharia compliant. And we're not in the US. We don't have a lightweight KYC we had to build our own KYC AML engine to support these startups. So notice that the ones that have won have validated a business model and went above and beyond and started where the others have stopped.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I want to turn to Ahmed, please. Ahmed, can you tell us about venture building and about your firm? And do you do copycats or do you do innovative ideas with what you're doing?
Sure. First of all, assalamu alaikum, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for the nice conference. First time in Jordan, definitely not the last time. So in BIM Ventures, we are a venture builder. We are a startup studio or a startup factory. There are many names for it. And yes, in a short answer, yes, we do copycat. But I don't think the challenge is in copying an idea which is out in the West or in the Far East. The localization is the real challenge. We have a very specific case I could share. Within our portfolio, or the first company within our portfolio was Ijaru, which is a copy of Turo in the US or Get Around in Europe. It's the first peer-to-peer car lending platform. That was not a challenging business model, but the challenge was it was an unregulated business in Saudi Arabia. It took us a whole year to get that license, or the first peer-to-peer car lending license, and then another year to connect with the Ministry of Interior Affairs platform in Saudi, which is Abshir, and then almost 1 year to get the user-based insurance. So 3 years to be able to localize, and at the same time we have been working with all the challenges that we have. Does not make copying really a bad thing, actually. It is good, but the challenge is always in localizing whatever you copy from outside, and at the same time preparing it, as our friend Mohammed was saying, preparing it for when that international player starts thinking about your market, to think about you as a good option to acquire you, and it will be a good exit for you.
Thank you, thank you. I think I want to move to Ehsan before going to Nagati. And Ehsan, you're the entrepreneur with us here, representing your company. Can you tell us about your business? Did you do a copycat of an existing thing?
Yeah. Thank you very much. So we too are the entrepreneurs. We are in the field of future mobility. So we do a lot of things with EV charging and everything that has to do with sustainable mobility. And that is a disruptive field of business, and it is really new. So there is not too much to copy because there are a lot of things going on, a lot of companies trying something. So we have to define and find our own DNA of how we develop and define sustainable mobility. But yes, we did copying, for example, business models. We did copy our business model from, because I saw a lot of phones and I see a lot of phones here. Everyone has a phone contract. So we did set up our focus on setting up contracts in copying the phone contracts and making a sustainable version of that and putting our own DNA in it. And so we also copy something. And it's not a shame to say we are copying something. It's okay, everyone does it. The iPhone is a copying thing of different stuff. So it's not a shame to say, yes, we copy.
Thank you, thank you. I think, Nagati, we want to jump into, okay, I did a copy and it's successful. How to exit copied and localized
So
product?
first of all, thank you for having me here, and I'm very happy to be in Jordan with people I've always wanted to learn from. So first of all, I made all of the money I ever made from, I won't call it copying, I'll call it inspired. Being inspired by things like Fawry is a version of the Brazilian Bradesco, but with some kiosks instead of the shops there. And Kareem, as Zobi was saying, it's a copy of Uber, but with other things added on. Halan, which a company I co-founded, we also were inspired by Gojek. And Check Me, which a venture I built, was copied or inspired by 1 milligram from India, and Clever from Revolut, and Exit from Microacquire. So technically, it's very hard to just come with an idea that's first of its kind. But it's much easier and much safer to be inspired by something that worked and add things that happen to be good in our region. About exits, since I'm also the chairman of a company called Exits, the exiting for the people you copied from is a very straightforward exit, like Kareem being sold to Uber. And also in Highland, we had a lot of acquisition offers from companies we actually copied. But I think it also makes sense to exit to other entities that you can have vertical or horizontal integration with, whether it's a courier company acquiring a company that does e-commerce or the opposite, or in healthcare, we have now a company that's doing lab testing from on demand, acquiring a doctor consultation company. So I think the two fastest way of exits, in my humble opinion, IPO is very hard. We did only one IPO, big IPO in Egypt, which is Fawri, but exits to companies are easier. It's either the same company or the same type of company acquiring for geographical expansion, or a company in the same geography acquiring for vertical or horizontal integration.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, how are we on time? So, does anybody have any question? The panelists and I thought maybe we could open it to be interactive.
I think I might have a really loud voice.
You scared me there for a second.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks everyone for your insights. I think it makes a lot of sense, like looking at similar business models in different markets and also companies that launched very successfully. But I have a very specific question when it comes to, like, in the same geography and also an early stage. What are the ethical standards in terms of copying at early stages in the same market? And what do you consider to be ethical and non-ethical? So what is the defining line between copying or not? Things like hiring ex-employees, like maybe sharing confidential documents. What is the defining line of ethics when it comes to copying, especially in the same market and an early stage? Thank you.
Do you want to ask anybody in specific or just open it?
It's a general question for anybody.
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
So, the only thing we're answering in this panel is copying business models, right? Anything beyond that, copying, sensitive information, I mean, that's an unethical element. At Nama Ventures, we said we're not going to invest in startups that are competitive, because if we're in your camp, we want to fire at the competition. Some VCs will tell you straight up, we're going to make multiple bets on this space. So always ask the venture capitalist. We also put a moral obligation on ourselves that will tell the entrepreneur within the first 5 seconds, please, we are making a bet on this space. We are in it just happened last week, right? Before the entrepreneur said, I said, we are in this portfolio company, and this portfolio company is pivoting to social commerce, right? So don't give us any of the nuggets. I can invest in you. I don't, we've taken this meeting. How can I help you beyond funding? So, but, stealing trade secrets, startups among themselves, they might have a code, and it happens. We've seen it in Saudi Arabia, where the top, path to unicorns sat together and said, we don't want to be poaching talent, etc. But the only thing we're talking about from an ethical standpoint is copying. And by the way, I can today, and I'll tell you this, I wear two hats. So I manage a fund in MENA called Nama Ventures, but I'm also an active angel investor with Sandhill Angels in Silicon Valley. And it's this, you cannot copy a business model. I can make an interface that looks you cannot copy UI, by the way. I can make an interface that looks exactly like Google and call it Moogle, right? And you hit search. And I am not infringing on their copyright. Now, if I go and I steal the algorithm, or if I get into the IP of how they do the ranking, now I've crossed, now it's a lawsuit. But copying UX, nobody has a patent on business models. Anybody can innovate and create. And by the way, when an entrepreneur comes to us and says, I want to build the next Facebook, I'll say, Haggak, it's a right, absolutely. But it would probably not make sense to do it out of Riyadh or Amman or, a place to, time to scale globally is not out of MENA. So if you are the X of, if you are a business model in MENA, will come, absolutely would love to talk to you. So ethics is very, very well defined. We're just talking about, replicating, or if I was an entrepreneur, you know what I'd do? Literally, because I asked this, I'll go to CB Insights. I'll download the unicorns, and I think there are 1,300, and I'll see what's not mapped in the region, and I'll go do that. Because all I have to tell to the VC, we are the X of Y. And I'll just shut up, and I'll be like, that's great, yep, well, right. Instead of having to reinvent the wheel. I don't know if that answers your question, but...
Hello. Okay, yeah, that's really loud. So I'm Abdulmanem Tamimi, and I want to ask, how do you choose which concept you want to copy? And this is for everyone, whoever wants to take it. How do you pick the concept that you think would work here? That's it.
Maybe I will take that one as a startup point of view. We are looking always for the easy way what the people like to see. We copied the business model because we needed a very, very simple way how people can subscribe to our model. And the easiest way, as we know in Europe, in the whole world, is the cell phone and the contracts they make. So we take that one. So we select always what is the easiest way for the user to onboard them. So that's how we say, okay, then we will let, how Mohammed say, inspire ourselves to someone else.
I want to add something here. So also copying from countries or being inspired by companies from countries that are similar to you, like Brazil is very similar to Egypt in many ways. A lot of people, the cities are far from each other, so a payment company would work well. Indonesia is very similar to Egypt also, so 2- and 3-wheelers, ride-hailing, work very well where the balconies are low, so the cars won't go into the small streets, and most of the streets are not really paved. If you've been to Egypt, you will realize this. Now they're better, but most of them are still not paved. So being inspired by startups from countries that are very similar is much easier, and also follow the money. Like in Highland, there was an investor that had money in Gojek that wanted to invest in a company similar to Gojek in the region. So you have the money and you have a very similar idea. So it's all about execution. So I think there are two things to sum up: similar geography in terms of how it works, and money, having the money there.
Ahmed, what do you think?
Yes. So maybe in our venture builder or in our startup studio, we try to think about it always from two aspects. What works in the local market, which is Saudi Arabia, where we are operating. And the second part, it's, as Mohammed was saying, you have to follow the money, because we're an investment company, so we might have 10 opportunities or 10 companies that we could copy and localize, but we look for the one with the highest multiple, and that will be the first decision factor that we will look into.
Great. Do you have any other?
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Mustafa from the University of Jordan. I have a question. I know we're talking about copying and localizing, but we're in a really growing environment, especially in the MENA area and here in Jordan. What I want to ask is, what is the other way around? If I have a great idea and I want to protect it from copying and taking it into other countries. So if we put our shoes in the big companies and the big countries and big entrepreneurs, how, if I came up with a good idea, can I protect it from copying? Should I protect it from copying in the first place or not?
So, I've got a strong opinion on this. Don't protect your idea.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we're going to be launching, so at NEMA we launched some CSR projects, right? One of the projects that we haven't announced, so I might as well just say it, it's still under development, which is Fikratek, right? Which is, we have some ideas we'd love for founders to go execute on. Rest assured, whether it's in Silicon Valley or in MENA, ideas are a dime a dozen. As a matter of fact, they say if you have a good idea, 5 people have thought about it. If you have a phenomenal idea, 15 people have thought about it. It's all about execution. Validate the idea. Talk to the 100 of people. 99 are going to tell you it's a bad idea. Then you go, wait a second. If everybody says it's a bad idea, it's a wonderful idea, because there's a barrier of entry. But I'll tell you, whether it's in Silicon Valley or in MENA, don't spend the 100,000 on patenting, on copywriting. validate every penny you have with the business model you're making assumptions on. So when you launch this idea, you have all these assumptions, right? We tell them, use our money at pre-seed to answer from the market if it's a good idea or not. Because if you ask everybody, they'll say, it's the market that matters. So that's why we call it a minimum viable product. We belong to the school of the MVP, minimum viable product, because the job of your initial, not idea, your initial product, notice we've gone beyond idea to initial product, is to validate if you have a good idea, if you made the right assumptions. So don't protect anything. Go to the market, learn from the market. The market will tell you, you might have started with idea A, but the market needs idea B or idea C. And you can sit in a conference room. This happened to me as a founder and also as an early investor from the 85 investments we've made. I can tell you now, I get nervous if the company we've invested in are still on the original idea after 12 to 18 months. Something's wrong. Because in the journey you gain insight. If they haven't pivoted, if they haven't corrected, if they haven't, Muhannad knows because you've gone through that a billion times in different regions. Something is wrong. Because the one that, as an entrepreneur, I can tell you, the one that, succeeded looked completely different 9 months from what we started with. So don't protect your idea.
Yeah, I want to add something here. If you, yesterday on LinkedIn, I got an idea at midnight, so I just wrote the idea and said, this is a nice thing. I think someone should execute it. So I'll add to Zobi here. I think there is nothing called a good idea. A good idea is a good idea when it's executed well. And also something else is that if someone else can take your idea and do it somewhere else, it's actually good. Because when someone succeeds, like there is a certain company in Africa that used to say we are the Halan of a certain country. This made us more valuable because now we are the Kleenex of the business, So it's actually good for someone to take your idea and do it, even if they do it better. It's also good, in my opinion.
I have a relevant example which I would like to share, adding to our colleagues here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kalu, which is the healthy
Our
food.
portfolio company, Kalu.
Yeah, portfolio. Okay.
Please see.
So I would like to thank you first.
Thanks for promoting Kalu.
Yeah.
Please order from Kalu.
So we've invested in Rumble. Rumble was a platform that helps any healthy restaurant in becoming digital, because the healthy restaurant subscription is the experience to subscribe with a healthy restaurant is difficult. So when Kalu came with their business idea, and then they were backed up with VC money, because Nema has a lot of money, Mohammed.
I'll take that.
That helped us. That helped us a lot in Rumble in terms of not having to explain the idea, because the founder, Sultan, started going out to a lot of the healthy restaurants and just telling them, I will make you like Kalu within 24 hours. And that was very helpful. So, I mean, the ideas and protecting them will not, I think it's an illusion that you think that you could protect your idea. You should actually use it the other way around to help others. And there is a multiplier effect. I mean, the more people you help, the more you share, the more validation you get, the better it is for everybody in the ecosystem.
Great. Ehsan, what do you think?
Yes, exactly. So maybe an example from our company, we invented a charging robot. We protected. 2 months later, a picture from China received. Same robot, same colors. They even put the logo on the same place like ours. So as you see, you can't protect anything. If someone wants it, they can copy it. But what they cannot copy, and this is the most important thing, is your determination, your DNA, and your passion for the product and design what you're making. And this is something that nobody can copy. And focus on that, then you will be successful.
Great. We have a question there. Fadal.
Okay, my question is, how to find the sweet spot between continuing to localize our idea or getting the exit that we want.
Actually, I wanted to add to that. For example, if I copied an idea from an existing company that is doing really, really good, should I approach them for a strategic investment, for an exit? How should I think as an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
So I wanted just to morph the question a little bit.
So, any strategics in the عشان ناخذ راحتنا بالجواب. Any strategics in the So we have a strong opinion on that also. We're not big fans of taking money from strategics at pre-seed seed. And this is all tested. It's tested in Silicon Valley, this is tested in MENA. I'll give you a quick example. We had a lending aggregator startup we were looking at, and they happened to have somebody on their cap table with a last name of an affiliation to a bank in Saudi. And then we wanted to talk to other banks. Nobody wanted to take a meeting. So a strategic very early on will eliminate your chances of going to other strategics. You want to close commercial relationships with strategic. Secondly, more important is ضيعت حالك الexit. The exits are finite, the strategics are finite. So you want to do that. Third, VCs play, value-add VCs play a critical role in you exiting and pricing you and beefing you up. I don't know if you guys know, because we're in Jordan, I'll talk about Maktoub. Lee Fixel from Tiger Global played a very critical role in Yahoo's acquisition of Maktoub, right? And if you sit with Samih, they'll tell you, we were navigating in uncharted territory. It's Lee that drove this. It's Lee's relationships that made this happen. It's the facilitating. So we don't like you taking capital from strategics very early on because it's very limited. Now, money is money. Nobody's looking at you. You want to survive. You want to hustle. But think about it strategically. Where are strategics perfect is in later stage round where you give them a try before you buy, right? Come in at the Series C, you know, and have an option, a call option to acquire me at 5x my next, KPI for 12 months. So I'll give you the ability to look under the hood, see how we operate, because I know you want to acquire. And we saw a sense of that. So we were in Tamara, and Checkout did kind of that. Right? They went and made a big bet because it's a natural fit within their product set. Now he had an earlier question. What was this is around taking money from strategics, but you had another component at the beginning.
How to measure between continuing to localize or exiting the business? That's the question.
I mean, okay, if you're a first-time founder, I'd say accelerate the exit as soon as you can. And by the way, there's no wrong or right answer in all of this. These are all opinions. Right? You ask 10 VCs, you're going to get 30 opinions. Nothing is right. But by the way, exit is not a button you press. You don't go to a board and say, go press the exit, right? Somebody wants to knock on your door, and you need to be proactive to generate enough interest to facilitate an exit. And I can tell you, there's a standing order for exits, whether, again, this applies to bets we've made in Silicon Valley or bets in MENA. Every entrepreneurial team aspires to have a publicly listing. It's the most rewarding. It's going to generate the most financial returns. So that's your Rolls-Royce option. Then you're going to go to your strategic acquisition by somebody that values the IP, values the business model. That's the Mercedes option, okay? Because a strategic will value a bit of the business model. Then it's a financial exit. Then it's selling your database as an exit. Closing is an exit, right? But some are net positive, some are net negative. You aspire and you keep driving and innovating. Look, be so good that you can't be ignored. This applies to strategics. This applies to investment banks. This applies to VCs. If you're good, don't worry, we'll find you. It's our job.
I want to add something here.
I want to use it also just for final words, so you can use that.
Yeah.
For that. Yeah. Go ahead. No, got you.
أنا حكيت خلاص أنا جات.
I want to add something here. We were working very closely with a company, and we got them an offer to exit, and they said no, we will continue to work, and then the market didn't do so well, and they had to close. So my advice, I know a bit conflicted, but exit when you can, because it doesn't come a lot. So this is just a pure personal opinion, especially with a bad market like the one we're in right now.
I just want to add one point here, or one comment. I mean, a lot of the founders, and we see this a lot as a venture builder, they get emotionally attached to the companies they are building, and they don't realize that it's time to stop. I mean, in Arabic, they say, "Tark al-tijara, tijara." So sometimes you need to know when to leave. For us within BIM, we have something called kill your baby, because that's how emotionally attached you get to a company you are building. But we are always aware that we don't want any Hotel California deals where we walk into an investment and we don't know how to exit from it. So I think that's the sweet spot, and when you should stop localizing if the market is not accepting what you have.
Thank you. I think we're good on time, but Ehsan, any final words?
Yes, just some final words to that. Be clear of your vision, be clear of that, what you want to do, and what is really important. I'm sitting here with VCs, so no, they want to exit, but if you are really determined to make an impact on the world with that, what you have, with the products you have, then just do it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Intaj.
Thank you.
Thank you.